Our next act is a staple in Florida folk music. Bob Patterson, he's known to all. If he's not, you ought to get to know him. And he's also, as much as a storyteller, he's a writer, and he's got a new book out called Dorothy. It's about the post-Civil War African-American Reconstruction. And it's the Out Islands, Talbot Islands, and Fernandina Beach, all things happening up in Jacksonville back then. You may want to pick up on it. It sounds like a really good read. He also has books and CDs for sale, and he plays Thursday nights at O.C. White's. Bob Patterson.
Hey, thank you, Laura. Yeah. Hey, guys, how you doing? Now, folks, a preacher went out preaching. It was on one Sunday morning. You know, he knew it was against his religion. Still, he took that gun along. He shot himself 3 mighty fine quail, 1 little measly hare. And on the way returning home, he ran into a great big black bear. The bear sat down in the middle of the road, walked up to the preacher, you see. You know, the preacher got so excited. He climbed up a cinnamon tree. Well, the bear sat down in the middle of the road. Preacher climbed out on a limb. He raised his eyes to the Lord in the skies. These words he said to him: "Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Also deliver Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then 3 Hebrew children from the fiery furnace. So the good book do declare. Oh, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sake, don't you help that bear." You know, that preacher was up in that tree. I think it was all night. He said, "Hey, Mr. Bear, you bother me. I'm going to give you an awful fight." You know, just about that time, the limb gave way. Preacher came a-tumbling down. Oh, you could see him getting that razor out before he even hit the ground. He hit the ground, cut right, left. He put up a pretty good fight. But then the bear grabbed the preacher, squeezed him a little too tight. Well, the preacher dropped the razor. That bear held on with a vim. Oh, he raised his eyes to the Lord in the skies. These words he said to him: "Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Also deliver Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then 3 Hebrew children from the fiery furnace. So the good book do declare. Oh, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sake, don't you help that bear." Now, folks, they fought all the way down to the river. It was a terrible fight. That bear just kept hanging on, but, you know, the preacher was doing all right. He dragged that beast right down into the water. He was 3 times in and out. Then the bear got up, limped away, and the preacher began to shout: "Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Also deliver Jonah from the belly of the whale. Amen. Oh, Lord, I know it may not seem like much from way up there. You know, the hardest thing I had ever done was baptizing that bear." Yep, he's got that old-time religion now. Hey, thanks so much, folks. You know, Ponce de Leon discovered Florida 1513. I didn't discover it till 1967. I was out on the road, you know, seeing if I could make a living telling lies and singing songs, and ran out of money in St. Augustine. Heard about a bar there called the Tradewinds Tropical Saloon. So I cleaned myself up after sleeping on the beach that night and went in there, and Jimmy Blue and Paul Champion were playing, and I met them. They were real sweethearts and wonderful human beings. And they introduced me to the bar owners. And so I'm sitting there with the bar owners having a little cocktail, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, and turned around and, howdy, Bob, I'm Gamble Rogers. This is my friend Wilma Claim. We're fellow guitar pickers." Little did I know. I knew they were special human beings. Never knew they would both wind up in the Florida Artist Hall of Fame. No easy thing for a folk singer. And they became lifelong friends. They were great folks. Hey, you ever heard a gator beller? Seen a snake with stripes of yellow? Have you ever heard a panther squall? Ever seen two sandhill cranes dance strut like they're going insane? Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Well, you ever seen a big old bass just disappeared in the tall eel grass? Ever looked inside a gopher turtle's home? Do you like to see the water run clean? Have you ever seen an otter primp and preen? If you have, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Now, Wilma Claim, that's a name synonymous with wildlife domain, man who is nature true and true. I'll save it for me, save it for you, you know, if you believe in that too. Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Hey, you ever been to Rainbow Springs? Listen to a songbird sing? Ever seen a gator's eyes light up in the night? Ever smelled that night blooming jasmine? Felt so good you thought you were in heaven? Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Have you ever stood on Florida sand? Want to see him take down that Rodman Dam and let the Ocklawaha run true and true? If you're man enough to take a stand and fight for this Florida land, then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Now, Wilma Claim, that's the name synonymous with wildlife domain, man who's nature true and true. I'll save it for me, save it for you, you know, if you believe in that too. Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Well, you ever caught a catfish in Lake Okeechobee? Dangled your feet in the Withlacoochee. Canoed on a river of grass. Ever sang a song on the banks of the Swanee? You want to see him take down the bridges across the St. Mary's? Will did. Now, Wilma Claim, that's the name synonymous with wildlife domain, man who is nature true and true. I'll save it for me, save it for you, you know, if you believe in that too. Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. Then, my friend, you know Wilma Claim. So I already told you I'm not originally from Florida. As a matter of fact, I'm from up north. You say that to different people down here, depending on where you are, you'll get a different response. Met an old conch one year down in Key West. I said, "Hey, man, you ever get up north?" He said, Yep, I get up to Miami twice a year." You know, but I did grow up in wilderness just to go to the mailbox. Had to pack a lunch. I grew up alongside of a river. A river at times got so low you could walk across it in places, and other times the floodwaters would come crashing up against our house. I was amazed how my daddy insisted on carrying everyone in the family out through the floodwaters. Mom, my two sisters, myself, sometimes the water right up to his chin. We thought it was incredible because Dad was the only one in the family that didn't know how to swim. Learned how to hunt, fish, trap alongside that river. You know, Henry David Thoreau says we all ought to learn how to do that because of the lessons that it teaches you about wild things and wild places. He said if we'd really learned those lessons, we'd quit. Not surprising, a young man growing up in the 1940s might have as one of his childhood heroes none other than Tarzan. We've all seen those Tarzan movies. We know the storyline takes place in Africa. Truth of the matter is most of those movies are made right here in Florida. So when I moved to St. Augustine some 40 years ago, that was my first thought. I'd moved to Africa. I thought, wow, this is a wild place. Over the years, I really learned the importance of wild places to the human condition. Everybody's got their favorite wild place. For you, it might be your own backyard, empty lot across the street, the woods down the end of the road. I'd like to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite wild places. It's the Ocklawaha River. Now, from my home in St. Augustine, I can put on that river any number of places. It takes about an hour to do that. One of the ways I can do it is I can drive over to the little river town of Wheelatka, pull my canoe out, put it into the mighty St. John's, cross that river, enter the mouth of the Ocklawaha. When I start to paddle my canoe up against that river, you know, my back gets a little straighter. I grow a little taller. A gray film falls from my body like tears as my senses are awakened by the beauty that surrounds me. I know that I'm on an ancient river, a river older than the flow of human blood through human veins. 100 species of fish, 200 species of birds, 300 species of mammals. It's a river not filled with just water, the lives of our ancestors. Now, about 2/3 of the way on up towards the Rodman Dam in that direction on the left-hand side of the river is a real nice little sandy beach area. Makes a great spot to camp out, especially when the water level's low. And 25 yards above the spot on a bluff, there's an Indian mound. An Indian mound that bears witness to the fact that right there in that very same place, there were human beings 12,000 years ago. Now, folks, 12,000 years ago, most of North America was covered with glaciers. All the animals, to keep from being frozen in glacial ice, they came to Florida. Florida was a wild place. The Ocklawaha remembers. The whole concept about coming to Florida, get out of the cold, that's when it began. Giant mastodons, woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, bison, camels. Florida was a wild place. So I decided to camp out at the little spot I was telling you about one night. I went ahead and pitched my tent, proceeded to make a nice little campfire and make what my friends call barbecue bobs. Oh, that's what they call me. Barbecue bobs, campfire chili, guaranteed to burn you twice. And I fixed up a big old plate full of that chili and brought along this bottle of mezcal tequila with me to help put the fire out, if you know what I mean. Now, you guys know that mezcal tequila is the one with the worm in it. My favorite time of night, when the great wash of evening falls over the Ocklawaha. I can watch the dance of shadow and light. That first bright wandering star, Venus, appears in the sky, followed by all those pale stars shining above me. You know, as the night gets darker and darker, each star sparkles, shines just like a diamond. There I am, sitting in that little camp chair, looking up at the bright wandering stars, listening to the owls hoot, gators bellow, and frogs sing. I was sipping on that mezcal tequila, staring at the caveman's television. Well, I started to get real sleepy. Figured I better go ahead and turn in. I went inside my tent, took up all my clothes, laid down and got ready to drift off and go to that place where sleep is perfect. All of a sudden, I heard a terrible sound. It was coming from outside my tent. I knew I wasn't going to get to sleep with that noise going on, so I got back up, put my clothes back on, fired up my old Coleman lantern, followed my ears on down to the water's edge, and there was a big bullfrog stuck in the mouth of a big water moccasin. That frog was making a soul-disturbing sound. Now, folks, I'm no fool, not the kind of man that ever messed around with a water moccasin. Well, this one had a big frog in his mouth. How could he bite me? I reached down and picked him up behind the back of the head. He was all twisted around my arm. I took that frog, twisted it one way and then the other. Okay. When a poisonous snake bites, they don't always inject venom. Sometimes they do what's called a dry bite. Must have been the case here because there's nothing wrong with that little frog. As a matter of fact, he was one little happy fellow when I let him go. See you, man. That water moccasin wasn't happy with me showing me an ugly old cotton mouth. Now, folks, I couldn't let it go. It'd bite me. I wouldn't blame it. So I didn't know what to do. I carried it up around the fireplace, walking around in circles, wondered, what in the world am I going to do with this thing? And that's when I noticed that bottle of mezcal tequila sitting down there. I reached down, picked it up, pulled the cork out with my teeth, took a slash, got ready to take another slash, took that to tequila, the water moccasin. Yeah. He blinked once or twice, and then those eyeballs kind of spin around like pinwheels. But I could feel him kind of loosen his grip on my arm. I gave him a couple more slashes. I gave him the worm. 3 minutes later, water moccasin was hanging off my arm like a piece of wilted lettuce. Took him down the water's edge, hung him out over the water, let him go. And I had a pretty big adrenaline rush after all that. Knew I wasn't going to sleep anytime soon. So I put another log on the fire, sat down in that little camp chair, looked up at the bright wandering stars, listening to the owls hoot, gators beller, frogs sing. Oh, I was sipping on that mezcal tequila, staring at the caveman's television. I fell sound asleep right there in that chair. Now, I don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up and I felt something bumping me on my leg. Opened my eyes and looked down. Ah! It was that same water moccasin. He bought me another frog. Took the frog out, let him go, picked up the tequila, placed a couple drops over his head. Mr. Water Moccasin, I hereby christen you frog. Gave him a couple more slashes of that tequila, took him down the water's edge, let him go. I went and got me a great night's rest. Now I'm canoeing past that same spot 3 or 4 days later with a real good friend of mine, and wouldn't you know it, here come that same water moccasin swimming out towards the canoe. I said, Gamble, frog. I said, now, Bob, that's not a frog. It's a water moccasin. You go diddling around with one of those things, one more white shirt will do you. You got to remember that Florida, it's a wild place. If I could only reuse time, oh, I'd go back 100 years to a place where I could listen to the lullaby of the rivers. For now and then there will arise out of the waters Indian spirits to tell me how they got their names and sing the lullaby of the rivers. Ocklawaha, Itchatutney, Econfina with the Coochie, Apalachicola, Wakulla, Wassisasilla, Calusahatchee, Kissimmee, Ocklawaha, Choctawhatchee, the Conalahatchee and the Swanee are singing the lullaby of the rivers. If you have ears enough for listening, you can hear what they are saying. Oh, you can hear them all singing a lullaby of the rivers. The moving water makes the music. The pureness creates the healing. The reflections give up the secrets to the lullaby of the rivers. Ocklawaha, Itchatutney, Econfina with the Coochie, Apalachicola, Wakulla, Wassisasilla, Calusahatchee, Kissimmee, Ocklawaha, Choctawhatchee, the Conalahatchee and the Swanee are singing the lullaby of the rivers. Now there were those who came before us, who called this place Blackwater, who knew their lives were mirrored so completely in the water. Our rivers are telling us those stories full of wildness and mystery, because our lives flow as rivers do to the lullaby of the rivers. Ocklawaha, Itchatutney, Econfina with the Coochie, Apalachicola, Wakulla, Wassisasilla, Calusahatchee, Kissimmee, Ocklawaha, Choctawhatchee, the Conalahatchee and the Swanee are singing a lullaby of the rivers. Ocklawaha, Itchatutney, Econfina with the Coochie, Apalachicola, Wakulla, Wassisasilla, Calusahatchee, Kissimmee, Ocklawaha, Lochte Choctahatchee, the Economahatchee and the Swanee are singing the lullaby of the river. Thank you so much. You know, looking through my memories, I see someone standing tall who just might have been in my lifetime the best friend of all. The sound of his finger-picked guitar still echoes in my mind. You know, a man who could make people laugh like that, I can tell you these days it's too hard to find. Yeah, Gamble had a poet's eye, patience of a saint. He could chart a course through the storms of life, do it without complaint. The kind of a man to try and do his part to try and right a wrong. The only thing he asked of anyone was just to listen to his songs. Now, Gamble was an honored man who unraveled tales about his Florida home. He's the kind of a man to give up his life so that another man could go on. Thoughts I thought forgotten, they keep trickling through, of a man who spoke with spirit fire, and a man whose heart was pure and good. Gamble had a poet's eye, patience of a saint. He could chart a course through the storms of life, do it without complaint. The kind of a man to do his part to try and right a wrong. The only thing he asked anyone was just to listen to his songs. He'd say, life's what happens while you're making other plans. One more white shirt will do you. You mess around with a snake with the coral bands. The greatest tribute paid to me in my lifetime is that I can look amongst my fellow friends. I can say, hey, you know, Gamble, he was a friend of mine. Yeah, Gamble had a poet's eye, patience of a saint. He could chart a course through the storms of life and do it without complaint. The kind of a man to do his part to try and right a wrong. The only thing he asked anyone just to listen to his songs. So thank you, folks. If you're up in our neck of the woods there around St. Augustine on the weekend of the 24th, the Gamble Riders Folk Festival is doing a benefit concert so we can make some dollars to try and keep our festival alive. It's our 17th year. It's hard keeping these things going. Patty Larkin, the wonderful guitar player and songwriter, will be there with Michael Reno Harrell. Michael Reno Harrell is featured almost every year at WillFest as a songwriter. And he was one of the headliners at the National Storytelling Festival last year, so it's going to be a fun night. GambleRogersFest.org. So, you know, me and Margaret, you know, we have been dear old friends, and every time Margaret and I see each other, whether it's in person or we email each other, call each other, the first thing that always comes out of our mouth is, after the hug, of course, is, how much longer do you think we can do this? So for me, this is our 17th year with Gamble Riders, and I guess Margaret's my mentor, because look how many years she's been doing it here with the Wilma Claim Festival. God bless her. So got to be down there for her 90th birthday so I could sing her this little song. You know, me and Margaret have been friends for so many years. We've had our share of laughter, more than our share of tears. You know, we'd always like to ask each other, how much longer can we go on? Finding a place in Florida for people to sing their Florida songs. Me and Margaret loved that man known as Wilma Claim. We helped him through life's ups and downs as he lived out his master's plan. You know, somehow we got the message. Will made us understand that it was up to us to protect the dignity of our beloved Florida sands. So sing your songs about rivers, sing about the springs, sing about the panther and the smallest of living things. Oh, sing about the wise old owl, the lonesome cowie grit. Just keep singing your songs for Florida. Do it for me and Margaret. You know, me and Margaret loved a place known as Rainbow Springs. We like to look out over the Withlacoochee, watching birds on the wing. And we like to bring people together to share their hopes and dreams. And when it comes to Florida, we want to hear people sing. Yep, me and Margaret love rivers, love to watch them gently flow. You know, we've seen so many people come and so many more go. We always were so grateful for the treasures they'd left as they go. You know, me and Margaret knew someday we'll join that river's flow. So sing your songs about rivers and sing about the springs. Sing about the panther and the smallest of living things. Oh, sing about the wise old owl, the lonesome cowie grit. Just keep singing your songs for Florida. Do it for me and Margaret. Me and Margaret love children. I guess it's the hope in their eyes. We want to see them loved and protected beneath the Florida sky. Sure, we want them to learn the difference between right and wrong. But after that, we want them to be learning, singing Florida songs. So sing your songs about rivers and sing about the springs. Sing about the panther and the smallest of living things. Oh, sing about the wise old owl, the lonesome cowie grit. Just keep singing your songs for Florida. Do it for me and Margaret. Oh, sing your songs about rivers and sing about the springs. Sing about the panther and the smallest of living things. Oh, sing about that wise old owl, the lonesome cowie grit. Just keep singing your songs for Florida. Do it for me and Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. It's always such a treat to hear what you have to say about Florida.